are there things in your life that you really wish that you were doing, but you hear the dialogue inside of your own head just going, it never works for me. I'm never like that. That's not for me. Or I just need to get on with things. Maybe sometimes the dialogue is just that that's not for people like you. Hi, I'm Coach Ted, and I am a neurotransformational coach, founder of Learning Pretzel, and a transformation advocate. And we want to welcome you with my dear friend Meriam Baldwin to the home of growth, where we will break down a lot of different secrets and a lot of different tools that you can utilize on your own to help yourself accelerate your own personal growth. Meriam, how are you doing? How about if you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Ted. My name is Meriam Baldwin. I'm a caregiver, I'm a wife, I'm a motivational speaker, I'm an author, and I'm a caregiver coach. And I can't wait to pour information into you.
Yes, absolutely. And this is our second episode. So if you haven't watched or listened to our first episode, I highly invite you to go to the Home of Growth and check out the episode number 1, where we were embarking on breakdown of how we can actually take an inventory of ourselves and can we actually really change our life. Now, in this episode, we want to talk about the talk, which is how do we talk to ourselves and why does it matter? Like, does it really make a difference when we pay attention to how we talk to ourselves? So we invite you to stay with us till the end, because we do have some powerful information inside of this episode that we want to share with you. This is us serving the community. So we want to make sure that this is a dialogue, not a monologue. I highly invite you to either send us a message or pop a comment if you dare to share it in public. What's up with you? What are the challenges? What questions do you have? Do you doubt? Do you question what we're saying? We would be delighted to bring you on board. And of course, as always, if there's anything you want us to include in the upcoming episodes, make sure that you share it with us so we don't omit that and we serve you what you need. Right, Meriam?
Yeah, right. And don't forget to subscribe to both our channels,
Absolutely.
Ted Learning Pretzels and Meriam Baldwin.
Absolutely. And also, if you do feel like you would benefit from being in a supportive space where there is, a crowd of people that is going to supporting you, where you can express yourself fully and raise your concerns, we've also created a Facebook group, which is private, because we do appreciate everybody who's going to be sharing things in there. So join them. The link you can find is in the description below, or you can just go to Facebook and look up the Home of Growth and just apply to join for the group. Meriam, I remember that when I was embarking on the personal development journey, I was doubtful whether this whole thing about how we talk wasn't by any chance a bit of a woo-woo sort of sensation that people were just trying to get attention. And quite frankly, I didn't really believe that it would work. Do you find yourself having similar sensations?
Oh, yes. Yes. I was so busy in my head, at least, with a negative talk. I call it a negative talk, like, Meriam, you're weak. And I was like, where does this come from?
Right.
Where is this coming from? Meriam, you're weak. People think I'm weak. That's what it is. That's what it was, sorry, Ted. And they will think I'm weak because when I ask for help, they will think I'm weak. That negative chatter, that negative talk. And I know many of us have, I think all of us, right, have those negative talks.
Yeah.
Those thoughts.
It's quite interesting because I remember that the first time I heard about this concept, I was really resistant to dive into it because I didn't want to acknowledge that I had a negative talk. I was all convinced that I am in the empowered state and I'm doing the best I can, and that's just the way I am, and things just don't work for me. So, like, you're going to tell me that I can change things with a language? Like, no, thank you. And also, I think that the difference in my case was that I didn't realize to what degree I was actually programming myself through the language to stay inside of this empowerment. And here's how it looked for me. I didn't believe that I could change things. So I was intellectually making up excuses and coming up with explanations why things don't work, right? I'm not wealthy because I don't have this paying job. I don't have this paying job because I'm not skilled enough. I'm not experienced enough. I don't have an opportunities to get that skill, to get this and all of that because I couldn't afford to do this. And I created a whole story of explanation which justified why I am in the place I am, right? So in other situation, I am not having this. And it very often was manifesting itself about me not having something. So it was the lack mindset, right? So I was looking, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have money, I don't have a great sex life, I don't have great relationships, I don't have reliable friends, I don't have good family members, whatever I was looking at. And then I would be kind of like going from one thought to another, because intellectually, that's what we do, right? Like
that's
we go like,
exactly
okay,
what we do.
why am I not making more money? Well, my job doesn't pay me enough. Okay, so it's the job's fault, not mine. And it makes sense. And to a point, like I look back at those days and I feel so much empathy for myself because the sentiment behind it is really kind. Like we just want to feel good about ourselves, right? Like, you're not doing it intentionally, right? But the secret in here is that shifting your mindset and shifting the way you talk to yourself and the way you write or rewrite the stories doesn't change the way things happen for you in your life, but it starts reprogramming you in a way that you enable those opportunities for yourself that can bring you there. But if you keep writing your life with a language of excuse, with a language of disempowerment, with a language of guilt, with a language of shame, they do not open the gate to an opportunity, possibility, and a bright future.
Yeah, and you know what, Ted? It's, in my case, if I look at myself, I had to allow myself to observe my thoughts. Meriam, what are you thinking? And once I start doing that, Ted, it opened up possibilities for me. Does it make sense what I'm saying? Once I started
it absolutely
observing my thoughts, it opened up possibilities. And I was like, oh, wow, what just happened?
Yeah. And one of the key things that, for example, was really, really critical for my journey to begin was really that, you see, when I was inside of that space, I didn't know what I didn't know. And I also didn't know what was possible. I didn't know how it worked. So I was just navigating my current situation. And it's very hard to see a solution or a possibility when you're inside of the problem. You often, if not always, need to access the 360 perspective, which is impossible to see from the inside. So think about it this way. If you're inside of a car, you can't see what's behind your blind spots. So if you're outside of the car, you can see the whole perspective. or if you're in the top of the car. And that's where I found inspiration came from me, from one of the coaches and personal development gurus that I was looking up to at that time, a man that I have met in person. And he just really inspired me. And he was like, so this is the way it works. This is this, this is that. And he basically shared everything, we're sharing with people in this series. It's just that I had to pay a couple of €1,000 for being there, right? So, but the reason why it was so powerful is because somebody suddenly takes your awareness outside of that vehicle and shows you the full perspective. And that was so huge because suddenly you start paying attention to things. And when you don't know what you don't know because you aren't aware of it, you haven't experienced it, maybe your belief system doesn't support it, then you're naturally not going to be inclined to do that, right?
Yeah.
So,
And Ted,
yeah.
were you also asking questions? The reason why I asked you this is because when you ask questions, you receive new information. You find out what's possible, what works for you. So I'm wondering, were you asking questions to receive new information that worked for you?
I have to say that I did. Answer is I did, but not only that, Meriam. I still remember to what point I was irritated when this gentleman, and his name is Jack, and Jack said to me, do you ask yourself questions? Do you self-reflect? Do you ever question your thoughts and your beliefs? And I'm like, yeah, well, sometimes I would. And I was like, so what questions would you ask yourself? And I said that, well, why is this and why is that? And he's like, if you want to find an answer, a good answer that's constructive and will help you embark on a powerful journey where you can get into control and change things, just know this. The quality of your questions is proportionate to the quality of your answers. And if you ask yourself questions, why, your mind, your brain goes on the scavenger hunt to find anything you know of that supports this answer. So if you want to shift, you have to start asking yourself different questions. And one of the questions that I'd like to share with all of you is that if you want to ask yourself constructive questions, ask yourself how, what, where, when. Don't ask yourself question why, because the way we are wired is when we ask question why, our brain literally digs everything and picks up every single limiting belief that we have to support this story. And here's something that I want to say that I believe it's super important to understand. The reason why our brain does that, although it can come across like it's a bit of a, not the nicest part, it's not supporting us, it does it out of a protection. Our brain's primary role is to protect us and keep us safe. So if within our beliefs and our thoughts, this is dangerous, this is painful, this is in any way negative, our brain will do everything to stop us from experiencing it again, especially if we have an evidence in the past. So instead of asking yourself, why am I not having more money? Your brain will come up in a split seconds with all of the excuses that restricts money. But if you ask yourself a question, how can I make more money? What can I do to make money? What is this situation showing me I can do differently? Or what is it showing me that I'm doing the same way? Because Meriam, right? Like Albert Einstein said it, that doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome is a definition of insanity, right?
Yes,
so if we
it
want
is.
to change something, we need to start doing things differently. And before we jump into taking those like massive actions, because we want to start in here and be over there in a second, right? But before we get there, we have to start somewhere with a micro steps and micro shifts. Do you remember if you think back about the first time you started working on the language and the internal dialogue, like,
Mhm.
do you remember how things were changing, or was it more a case for you where you started working on it and suddenly you realized a change like a little bit later?
Well, I asked myself, I was scared to ask people for help, right? I was scared that I would fail as a caregiver. So I asked myself the question that, Miriam, what does this say about you?
Mm,
And the answer was, I want to I want to be the perfect caregiver.
yeah.
And what does this say about you, Miriam? And that's how that I started asking, when I started asking myself those questions and getting those answers, that's when I discovered what I believed, my thoughts and my beliefs.
Because all of the statements that are I am, right? They are one of the, now guys, if you're listening to it or if you're watching this, pop a comment and just tell us whether you can relate to this, whether this is resonating with you. But I have to tell you that the I am statements are one of the hardest things to navigate, because everything that is I am is an emotional affirmation for you.
Yeah.
And we do not consciously realize what an impact it creates on us. But I can tell you one thing. If I ask you a question and without thinking, you give me an I am answer, that I am answer without a conscious analysis and thinking is directly connected to your belief system,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So if I am asking for help, if I am weak equals something, that just triggers a whole line of interactions within you. And this is why we're doing this episode and dedicating it to the language, because when we dive into really understanding ourselves a little bit better, because I'm a firm believer that you can't change what you don't understand. So if
Yeah.
you really understand how this thing works, there's three things that usually happen. And I notice that a lot with my clients. First of all, we get more compassion to ourselves. We are more compassionate with ourselves because we understand that there are certain parts of ourselves that are not intentional doing. They are part of our wiring. And the second thing happens is that people start realizing that, okay, so if I know that this is the way it's working, well, how can I change that? What can I do
Yeah.
differently? And by taking this step, what happens is that we're starting to loosen up some of the screws that have been like really tightly screwed on for such a long time and are not working for us. And the third thing that happens is that over a period of time, even when we start just by opening up our mind and considering it, exploring it. I remember we had this conversation. You did it so powerfully when you were talking about the book, right? That you said that you started writing about how you felt and what you
Yeah.
thought and all of that. And that yielded a massive awareness for you. What was your internal dialogue? Now, fast forward, we have a book that Miriam
Yeah.
is an author of, the Caregiver 2.0, from the burnout to powerhouse, which I highly invite you to check out. But that's how the journey began, right? It's a journey where you start up with small little things and then you start making bigger leaps, right?
Yes, and you know what? I was putting so much energy in being the perfect caregiver. It wore me out. It exhausted me. So instead of finding out how I can be a balanced caregiver, right? I
Yeah.
was putting too much energy in being the perfect
I
caregiver.
didn't realize, whenever I look back in my personal growth and my personal development, and I see all of the things that I have changed and how I've transformed my life, I always get really, really amazed with this one powerful realization. I didn't know how much energy it cost me, how much time, how many emotions, what was the expense of me holding on to the old lifestyle that didn't serve me until I let go. Because it works this way, like when you develop those habits and protective mechanisms and all of those things, right? Like we do it in a responsive way in life, and none of us goes like, you know what, how am I gonna make my life harder? I'm gonna keep telling myself I'm crap and I stink. No one does that intentionally, right? So but then we keep adding into it. And like I like to think about it this way. Do you ever find yourself going to a supermarket and you think to yourself, oh, this is just going to be a small shopping, right? So you don't take the trolley, but you take a small basket, right? And then as you keep going, you go like, oh, I'm going to get a tin of beans and I'm going to get a kilo of rice and I'm going to get this and I'm going to go that. So you went with an intention of doing something super light and brief. And then a minute later, like your one shoulder is lower because your basket got so heavy, right?
I know.
Right? Can you relate to that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So guys, if you can relate to that as well, put a comment, because I know that guilty, hello, I call myself forward with that. But the interesting part is that that's what we do in life. We experience something, it triggers us in some way, and we just maintain and reprogram those thoughts, those beliefs. We bring ourselves into those emotions. And then the interesting part is that in the moment we don't realize that, because guys, you do have to keep this in mind. When we talk, when we respond, when we do a lot of those things, they are in our unconsciousness.
Yeah.
Because our brain automates things, because we would go crazy trying to consciously pay attention to every single thing we respond to, right? We're overstimulated with so many things. So when we do that unconsciously, but suddenly you're realizing that your basket is close to the ground and you really look like Notre Dame hunchback, and you go like, how did that happen? Right? And that's how it builds up.
And I was sorry. I was also wishing for things to be easier instead of making sure that I was getting better at certain things.
Absolutely. And this is a really important part, because I think that there's also a perception that when we don't know how to do it by ourselves, and guys, I really need to call myself forward on that. The reason why I resisted doing it and asking for help is because I felt that if I need help with this, I'm stupid. And that was the most painful stick I could beat myself up with. That if I need help with this, that other people around me in my perception don't struggle with, other people in my surroundings, they don't seem to have the same problems as me, then I am the problem and I am stupid. And I wouldn't say that out loud to myself, because I can only see it from the other side of personal growth experience. But that was one of the biggest threats, because we want to feel good about ourselves, right? And even when I dove into the personal development, and people have this assumption that once you dive into it, it's a full liberation, like in the 60s, power flower, and we're going to run around naked, right? It's not that. The personal development journey is when you start stepping into your empowerment and make an intentional and conscious choices, and what's in your unconsciousness and what is outside of your conscious awareness, you allow yourself to explore that. So you can create new programming, more supportive beliefs, check in, is this story still serving me? Is this story expired? Because what I found after a certain while is that I was holding on to a lot of stories and a lot of beliefs out of a habit, because I never questioned them. And I never investigated them. And then once I did that, because I just want to share that with people, that once I did that, I realized that inside of my basket, I had things that were out of date because that was no longer me.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm still mastering my self-talk. I'm still bettering my habits. I'm, talking positive to Miriam
Yeah.
every single day. I'm growing every day. I'm not the same Miriam I was yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because every day I learn a new thing.
Big time. And what I just want to say is that the, comparison is a very helpful tool. It's a very helpful skill to compare yourself. But the problem is that it's not that we compare ourselves, it's who we compare ourselves to and what do we do with this comparison. And this is powerful because the only person you can compare yourself to, since you are the person you are, the only person you can compare yourself is yourself in the past. You can't compare yourself to another person because I can compare myself with you because we're two completely different people. Yeah. We are in completely different stages of our life. We've had completely different experiences in life. We might have similarities, but we have a lot of differences that make us so brilliantly unique. But yeah. I can compare myself because I also don't have your challenges and you don't have mine. So what we do with comparison is not helpful. But Meriam, when we dove into it, and I know that for me, it was just the desire to just to experience my life differently. That was my desire. I just wanted to experience different form of a life. What was your drive to even try shifting your language and shifting the way you were talking to yourself? Before we go into the application, I just want us to get clear. Like for me, it was a real desire to live differently, like let go of the guilt. I wanted to shred all of the pain and just see if there is a possibility that I could live differently.
So for me, it was that I was sad most of the time, and I didn't want it to be sad anymore. That I was tired of being tired. I was tired of being tired. So I said no more when I burned out. When I burned out, I was like, oh my gosh, what just happened to me? It was not only my body, it was my body, it was my mind. I'm getting goosebumps as I'm saying this. I didn't want to live like that anymore. That there were small things like, I wish I could go for dinner with a friend. Just a tiny thing. And I was like, Miriam, why don't you schedule better so you make time to have dinner with a friend and socialize?
The power of making those steps is really tremendously important in life. And I think that one of the hardest things is that we just don't know how to create a change without throwing more shame on ourselves and more guilt. Because we feel that if we change, we're going to have to sacrifice something. And it's a valid point. And I completely see that. And I can relate to it that, my perception was that if I was to change, I would have to sacrifice a lot. And I still remember in the midst of the biggest probably misery of my life that I have experienced, our beautiful sister Lisa Nichols, that you know, and I do too. But before we've met her, I remember a few years. It was like that for a few years. I was in a really, really sad state. And just like yourself, I was really tired of being tired. And I was tired of being tired of being tired. Yeah. So it was just like another level of just misery in my life. And I remember sitting in a dentist waiting room. And I didn't want to even talk to people. I was so antisocial. I just wanted to get it done. I was too tired even to have a conversations with people. I was too tired to pretend that I was okay. And I remember I had my sunglasses on, important, a little bit of a distance, right? Headphones in, so nobody talks to me. And I was watching Lisa Nichols on Impact Theory. And inside of that story, she said words that still give me goosebumps whenever I hear it. She said, I had to let I had to let my old self die. And I had to let of my old self go completely. So I start anew.
Yeah.
And I never made it to the appointment because I was so activated with this that I just had to keep walking. And it broke a concept for me that for such a long part of our life, we're holding on to who we have become. And the scariest thing in changing yourself and embarking on a discovery journey, personal development, whatever this journey looks like for you, healing, equals losing part of you.
Yeah.
Right? And we're so afraid of losing who we are because that triggers the question who we will be if we change. Are the people in my circle gonna still like me? Is my family still gonna accept me? Is my partner gonna be still with me? Right? Because those were all of the things that I found very present in me. And I'm sure that you can relate to it because I remember our conversations. And guys, if you are listening to it or watching this, pop a comment if you can relate to that. Or just answer it to yourself inside of your heart. When you're thinking about creating an actual change, does that trigger a fear inside of you? Because it did for me. Because just like Lisa said many times, right? And we've heard her speaking on multiple platforms to that when we want to do something in life and change, we play Rescue 911, right? We want to bring everything and everyone in our life with us. But the truth is that the door is made just for you, as Lisa says. And I love that because we are so much more valuable to everyone who's in our life when we do what's right for us and when we start living as our full self. Because the fear that we actually have is that when somebody uncovers who we really are, they're going to change their mind.
Yeah. And you know what I want to add to this, that I love what you just said. What I would like to add is that you deserve the best version of you, and the world deserves the best version of you.
Absolutely. And the biggest gift you can give, not only to yourself, because guys, what happens when you actually step into your real self? Like, it's not about losing yourself. When we dive into a personal development, we actually discover who we really are, and we start shredding all of the layers and layers that we have put on over the years that are not us. You know yourself, like if you are having this conflict and you know that the way you live is not really who you are, that you know you're capable of more, you know the life has more to you and it wasn't meant to be like this, and you're not happy with the way it is, this is exactly who we are talking to. Yeah. You need to shred a lot of the layers, and that's a lot of the work that we do with people. But here's the thing, when you take them off, you uncover who you really are. And I cannot tell you, I can't advocate enough for you. When you uncover who you really are, the people who are around you feel you've shred the layers, and they get to fall in love with the real you. Yeah. And it's not only your life that's going to change dramatically. It's going to change so tremendously, but everyone around you, because when you step into your element, when you step into your real self, when you're working within yourself without those barriers and upholding all of those things, life just gets so much more joyful and fulfilling.
Absolutely.
And
no more words needed.
absolutely. Because it's so incredible, because not only you benefit from that, everyone around you actually benefits from you. So diving into a little bit of a practical application, how did you explore your thoughts and how did you explore your language, Meriam?
So what I did is started asking for help. And once I started asking for help, I could see possibilities. I could grab opportunities that I started scheduling. I said, Meriam, start scheduling. You know, you already mentioned that I was writing things down. The result is my book, Caregiver 2.0 from Burnout to Powerhouse. I started practicing self-care. Ted, the result was that I could live a balanced life as a caregiver.
I hear you. And to everybody who's watching and stayed with us to this point, thank you so much for your attention and for your time. And I know that for some of you, this video is going to be where this particular information, might end. You might want to take it in your hands and explore it. And if you are a little bit like me back then, or quite a lot like me, you might want to reach out to get some help, which we're happy to provide for you. For me, Meriam, the biggest thing is that I was writing a lot and I was very reflective, but I needed help. I needed external perspective. And that's what really enabled me to do it, because I didn't know what to look for. I didn't know how to express that, because I was so set in repeating those thoughts and repeating those beliefs that when I've just written there, I've just written them, I looked at them and I was like, yeah, that's it. That looks all right. That's okay here. Yeah, I agree with all of this, because I was repeating what I was programming myself with. So I needed a little bit of a help. And guys, if you do want to, we're going to put the link into the description of this video in here. I have this exercise here, which is the inventory of self, which we invite you to take. It's just to help you to explore where you are, throughout this journey. You can do it with any challenge you have. You can do it with the language, whatever. I highly recommend that you check it out. And there's also a link, where you can actually get in touch with us. But for me, the biggest thing was that guidance and understanding, like, what am I looking for? And what am I trying to shift? And then make choice. What do I want to do instead? And that brings me into this section that there's 3 things that I want to share with you in this video. First of all, we've already spoken about the affirmations. Whatever follows I am is programming you, and it affirms you. But the empowerment from the affirmations doesn't come without beliefs. So everything you will say automatically as I am is your belief.
Yeah.
So if you have a challenge, and I highly invite you to try that when you're triggered, because this is where the real stuff comes out. When we are having a cup of coffee, when we have an hour off and sit in a cafe, we're going to write the most idealistic things that we want.
Yeah.
But I invite you to ask yourself this question: what am I telling myself that I am when this happens? Because this is where you explore what the trigger brings up. The second thing is, how often do you use universals? And by universals, we mean always, never, every time, no, never. And ask yourself, this is the way it worked for me. In my past relationships, I've experienced being cheated on. In personal relationships and business relationships, it felt like I was cheated. So I lived inside of a story that everyone cheats, right? And here's the thing. Not only is it not true, but it's also not helpful to keep repeating that to myself. Now, I was doing that out of a hurt, out of protection that everybody does. So I'm going to assume and this and that so I don't disappoint myself, because there's nothing worse than trusting when you're unsafe inside, when you trust and that trust is broken and you're disappointed, because it hurts. Awful experience. But it's unfair, because by saying that everybody cheats, I wasn't honoring all of the people that respected me, that uphold my values, that respected my boundaries, that respected me who I was, that, you know, were forthcoming to meet me where I was. That wasn't fair to them, but it was programming my mind into assuming that everybody will cheat on me. And I had a very smart story attached to it. If they don't, that's a bonus. But that is not the way you are going ever to help yourself, by assuming that everything that's going to be out there happening is going to be bad. And if it doesn't, it's a bonus, because that's not how life should be. Really. And the third thing that I want to say to you guys is, when you want to create a change, vague terms doesn't get you anywhere. When you say that I just need to get more disciplined. I need to move on. I need to get going with this. I invite you to really explore it further. What specifically do you want to get on with? What specifically do you want to move on from? What specifically are you looking to do? Because the trick about that is that when we say that I want to move on, I want to get on, I want to get this done, it gives us a sense of accomplishment because we've made a plan that feels like we're taking action. But when you don't have the specificity of what is it that you're going to do, your chances of doing anything just fall down about 80%. Because we will be always more likely to take an action and change something when we're specific about what is it that we want to do.
Yes, break it down and take baby steps.
Absolutely.
I wanted to change overnight. That's not possible.
Guilty.
That's not possible.
And the interesting part is that we all have a tendency, I think, just by the nature, the design of the nature, because we want to be smart with our time, right? We want to be smart with our energy. We want to be smart with our attention, and we want to get the results fast. And if it doesn't seem like we're not going to do it fast, it's a preservation mode, right? We want to just preserve a lot of those precious resources. And as we do that, on the contrary, we spend them elsewhere in our life without paying attention to it. I just said that I was suppressing and resisting things for years, only to realize after I let go how much energy it took. And then no wonder I was actually not having energy and willingness to do this here, because I was actually spending my energetical currency over there. And energy, attention, language, all of that is just a different form of a currency. Think about it. If you have a budget for the day, you need to manage it. And if I told you that you have the same budget with your energy, with your attention, with your, I don't know, expression or creativity and all of that, wouldn't you start managing it differently? And when we do, it's important, and I think that this is going to tie up nicely, you know, as a wrap up, that when we go through the self-talk, I want you to think about it this way. If you explore your self-talk, I want you to imagine a 5-year-old child saying all those things to themselves in the mirror. How would you feel? Because I know that if I saw a child that speaks that way, like I did, I would do anything to help them change. And also, if I spoke to people around me the way I was speaking to myself, I doubt anybody would want to hang around.
Yeah.
So
And
become your friend.
Yeah. And, when I look in the mirror, I see a beautiful Miriam. And I think, okay, I talk to you like I talk to a friend I love, a loved one. Talk to yourself like you're talking to your dearest friend, to your loved one.
Absolutely. And think about it this way, right? Imagine having, try to recall experiences of two different people in your life. The one that was kind, helpful, and supportive on your journey, and the one that was really critical and was just like throwing shade at you. Think about it this way. With which one of them around you would you like to be? Because you have a choice. Ultimately, everything we do in our life is our choice. So you can either choose to be the critic that makes you feel bad about yourself, or you can be the kind, supportive person that can help you. Now, we do invite you to reach out. Both of us, we do invite you to reach out because we know how difficult it is. And we also know that as you go through this, it triggers a lot of emotions, and emotions and feelings and sensations are going to be our next talk. So do stay tuned in, because we're going to publish it next week, and this is going to be episode 3 about navigating through your emotions, how we can explore them, how we can help ourselves with it, and what do they sometimes mean when they come up. So if you do want to stay, if you do want to continue this journey with us, which we would be very grateful if you did, just stay with us. This is all for you. Meriam, just to wrap it up on a positive note, what is the piece of advice you would give to people when they think about their self-talk and the language they use moving forward?
Remember that your body is listening to what you are saying. Remember, your body is listening to what you are saying.
Yeah.
That's all I want to say.
That's so powerful. Guys, before we wrap up, I'm just going to leave you with this thought. You didn't come to this earth to suffer. And there are things in our life that are difficult. And as you know, because we've shared those stories with you, we were no different. We just learned how to navigate. So if things are the way they are, just know they don't have to be. And for some of you, it will be a time to jump onto a call with one of us and accelerate. And for some of you, it's just going to be that important moment where you just learn something that starts brewing inside of you, because that's where you are. And we celebrate you where you are, who you are, with all of your beauty, with all of your challenges, with everything. And we just hope that you're going to tune in to our next episode next week. Thank you very much, everyone, for your attention, for your time, and we look forward to speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
See you soon. Bye.